Welcome back to another video on the Nortex Mining YouTube channel. If you're new here, we mostly cover helium content as that's what got me into mining, but starting to branch out now into GPU mining and maybe some other type of mining soon here. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this type of content. Hit that like button if you think it's worth it. Let's go ahead and jump right in. This is the HIP 70 updates video. Of course, HIP 70 is the core devs proposing to migrate the layer 1 Helium blockchain onto Solana. One thing I did want to bring up right up front that it doesn't look like a lot of people are talking about just quite yet, but apparently there is a quote massive grant from the Solana Foundation to the Helium Foundation happening as part of this. And it seems like there was already some negotiations. No specific numbers have come out yet, but obviously you would think whichever layer 1 Helium does migrate to, there would be a huge grant going towards the Helium Foundation to basically signal that, hey, the community and developers and whoever else is kind of behind you, and we want you. And there's tons of grants out there right now for basically every single ecosystem. Whether you apply for them or not is kind of up to you, and this is kind of goes more towards the development side and how active the developers are and how active people are in building new projects on these different platforms and ecosystems. So not really a surprise, but I mean, again, just kind of seeing this after the fact, it kind of almost makes it seem like it's a done deal. That nobody, this vote might not mean as much as everybody thinks it does. But yeah, I mean, I'll leave that for another video. Let's go over the updates real quick. So after the community calls and town halls, I think there was some questions over the oracles and who exactly was going to be operating them. And again, the HIP stated that they were going to be operated by Nova Labs on behalf of the Helium Foundation, which is fine to start, but I think people had the question, and it was a good question, of how do we know that these oracles are behaving honestly and correctly? And so Amir and some of the other Amir Halim's the CEO of Nova Labs, and he often has the best responses to questions like this. But he did state that they are obviously going to open source the code and welcome, multiple Oracle providers, and so until there are multiple Oracle providers, that the rewards for oracles don't go out is really the most important part here. That would be the update. So I think that goes a long way into building the trust in the community that, hey, we're going to operate these initially, but the point is for maybe some validators from the old HNT blockchain to potentially be able to stand up oracles or other people in the community, and basically to ensure decentralization of this part of the architecture, which is great. Love it. Great idea. So I think that was a good update. The other three updates that got written into the HIP 70 also is this cooldown reduction or unstaking. They are moving that down to 3 months. And so while this doesn't really affect me personally, but if you have your HNT staked in a pool, or if you went in with your buddies and have staked a validator somehow, I mean, congrats. You're probably not watching this video, but they are going to be able to get their HNT unstaked and backed in a matter of 3 months. So that kind of removes the need for this staked HNT and any vesting period after the migration. The second update is that they are proposing a 3x bonus for people who signal they do want to stake their HNT as veHNT going into the new network or the new blockchain. So that's pretty enticing. I mean, we'll see who is going to want to stake for a 3x bonus. I think there's still going to be multiple time periods that you can agree to, so could be a nice little boost, even if you just lock your HNT up for something like 6 months or a year or something like that. And then finally, the core devs are going to seed wallets of new users of Solana. So if you're like some of us, like myself included, I own 0 Solana. So I will not be able to interact on their blockchain initially, but this kind of solves that problem. So I think in the HIP they said about 100 transactions worth of Solana will be put into, basically, I guess, kind of like airdropped into everybody's wallet, so that the first 100 transactions that you do on their blockchain are kind of taken care of for you. You don't have to worry about buying Solana. And so that also is a good update to have. I think the other thing I do want to share from the community calls and Twitter Spaces and all that is, obviously everybody's wondering what happens if Solana goes down. What happens if Solana goes down? And again, Amir kind of addressed this by comparing it to other chains that increase their gas fees when the load gets heavy. And that basically is the logical equivalent of a chain going down, right? Because transactions can no longer occur at a reasonable fee. You end up with these exorbitant gas prices, and no transactions, or very few, are getting through, right? Only people who are paying so much money in or so much in gas fees actually get to go through, and so that's a pretty big hindrance on the blockchain. And obviously the updating of token balances wouldn't ever go through at that high of a gas fee. So ultimately, the miners, everybody would just have to wait until fees came back down and the rewards transaction to go through, and then everybody gets rewarded the minted HNT or IoT or mobile, what have you. So overall, seemed like an okay explanation for the chain doesn't really chain going down isn't really as bad as people make it seem, which I guess public perception wise, I think that's probably debatable, but maybe implementation wise, yeah, not so much. I mean, logically, it doesn't really do anything other than update the token balances once the rewards transactions gets processed. So overall, like I said, seemed like pretty good updates to the HIP. We are now into the voting period, so continue to do your research. And as always, keep those costs low and keep your spirits high. I'll see you guys on the next one.